disasters. Can humanity survive?
He was brave, he was sensational.
Wow, everything would change from cowboys and Indians in about 5 seconds.
He was so cool and calm under fire, he was so in himself.
He was bitter, he was vengeful.
Burn your face to hide your identity.
He was dull.
Your evil can never win.
He was humorless.
Move and I'll kill you.
But he could fight like buggery.
There was always a certain element of magic involved in what they were doing.
Very much saturated in the culture of the Western. And we'd never seen an Eastern.
(1964) Australia, a country on the brink. In less than 19 years since the end of World War II, they've built the good life. Those dark days with the Japanese at the door are now a distant memory. But this cosy world is about to change forever. 3 days after Christmas, commercial TV station Channel 9 screened the first episode of a show that would rock the country. For the kids of Australia, the TV series The Samurai became an obsession.
I just sat down one night after school and thought, geez, what's this? This looks all right. This looks good.
Please help me. You stupid fool. What made you think you could escape from me?
The first time I experienced it, it was like an awakening of something.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Please excuse the boy.
Did I really see these weird Japanese guys wrapped in bandages running through an ancient town?
Let's go. Yes.
I turned to Mum and said, what the fuck is this? Look at this. These are people killing each other and the words don't match their mouths. It's like I've gone to heaven.
What's wrong?
There was a terrible face in the mirror.
A guy with long flowing hair. How cool is that?
Aussie kids fell into a new fantasy world.
You! I am not Sadanobu. My name is Shintaro.
Why, you tricked me. Where's Sadanobu?
You Koga ninja. You're all fools.
This man must die.
To the astonishment of their parents, they became Japanese. They were samurai and something called ninjas, shouting his name across the backyards of Australia.
Somebody must have thought this is slightly unusual, us showing a dubbed Japanese adventure program set, 300 to 400 years ago. But who those people were, well, I've never heard of them ever since. Everybody else takes credit for it be a brilliant idea and it must go to air.
The samurai was loosely based on historical events taking place during the late 1700s. The story goes like this. Akikusa Shintaro, our hero, was hired by the premier to protect the young shogun from the evil warlords. His adventures lead him to befriend an eager ninja by the name of Tombei the Mist and an orphan boy named Shusaku. Together, they embarked on protecting the government from the endless supply of evil assassins known as the ninjas.
Take off your mask! Shintaro Akikusa. I don't know about the others, but you cannot fool this master ninja's eyes. Wait!
So much for the details. But that's not why the samurai and Shintaro swept the country and made some older Australians ask, who really won the war anyway?
You got to see something which was just totally unusual, which was totally out of the norm that you would see on television.
The scenes of Japan, of the mountains, and
the villages and all that sort of thing. I mean, this was another world. This wasn't, you know, Coogee.
Get to your work at once.
Right.
So, what were they looking at in this new world that had turned everything on its head?
The special effects.
We die together.
I told you, there were no effects in the samurai. They were all absolutely real.
Not that I would have thought it was a special effect, like the thing of the jumping out of trees.
For some reason, it never bothered anyone that most of the stunts shown in the series were physically impossible, like walking on water.
We'll meet again.
The stuff that they could do with ropes and hooks, it was just a whole extraordinary, marvellous, surprising world.
Seeing Japanese as children, we had no idea what Japanese were.
My grandmother had a broomstick which she used to attach broom heads to, and I used to stick the broomstick in the back, and I just loved pulling out a sword from behind. So I also loved Zorro. This was a bit pansy. This was...
Which as kids we just thought was absolutely fabulous, and the sensational 30-foot jump upward or back out of the trees. It was just a marvellous thing, and so suddenly that took over our world of fantasy.
In the samurai, we saw something very special. We saw something completely different, yet kind of the same. We had the good guy killing the bad guy, but in a way that seemed more accessible, yet further away.
Then there was the stuff that was just weird.
The lampshade at home, we had a lampshade that used to sit in the corner of the lounge room. I kept on thinking, if I put it on my head and get my mum to punch needles through the front, I could have that hat, the big sort of the basket hat, that Oriental Ned Kelly style thing. I love the laundry basket on his head was certainly stuck in my mind.
Tombe, follow me.
What? And then there was the acting.
Oh! There was this acting style which was so unusual.
Genkuro tried to kill Sadanobu with a rocket.
What?
A big rhetorical acting style that you might have seen in Victorian melodramas or something. It was all very sort of sharp and big reactions and that, which we thought was, on the one hand, hysterical but exciting.
Genretsu. Taekkongo-ren-gyo. Nichi-renzai. Naibakujin.
It was something that parents would not be interested in, so it was something you had to yourself, and something you shared with the cognoscenti, those who might have watched it with you, in the same people who might have read Phantom comics, and who were interested in old jungle sayings. You know, some nights the Phantom walks the streets dressed as an ordinary man. This is one of those nights. Well, for some of us that was sort of interesting.
We saw a form of athletism that we'd never seen before, the whole idea of the martial arts movements. Ha, hoo, ha, making similar noises. Boys love to make strange noises that sound like they're burping, and make weird movements with their arms. It was heaven on a stick.
It will be interesting to see what they do.
But apart from the whole new world of samurai and ninjas, the thing that has stuck to this day in the memories of the children of that generation was the shurikens, commonly known as those bloody star knives.
For some reason, it was just really satisfying going... I mean, it was just sort of nuts.
You'd only have one star knife, but then you'd keep throwing them afterwards.
Sticking in the wood, and they never hit him. He was always deflecting them and stuff, and how he could see them coming at him was always amazed me.
I remember eating my wagon wheels in the shape of a star so that I could hold it in my hand.
I didn't do metal work at the time, but I did go home and use my mother's dressmaking scissors to cut out tin can lids to make the throwing stars.
And not that they worked very well. It was a curious thing about the samurai that Shintaro, or Shintaro Akikusa, only had to stand beside a tree and suddenly it was alive with bloody star knives. They had no trouble at all hitting trees. They just couldn't hit people.
I once tied my sister to the back fence as practice, as a target, for me to biff star knives made out of paint tin lids at her. Then all of Dad's paint went off because they had no lids anymore. So it was a belting all round for me, but that was the only thing. It didn't stop them, though. They thought it was good character building, mostly for my sister.
Ninjas are stupid.
That's right.
We
Well,
got
she's like
the samurai spirit as 11-year-old children.
Suddenly, here was Shintaro, and a Japanese hero that we gladly, thrillingly embraced. With no awareness that this was a major cultural shift somehow, but it must have been, it was, because he was the first.
No one had expected it, but Japanese TV was invading Australia. And it would bring more than star knives and fancy swordplay.
Bullseye! Annie Oakley hits the entertainment bullseye every week with her hard riding, straight shooting.
What's the matter?
Deuce Johnson and Cash Naylor. If somebody don't stop them, they're going to kill each other.
At the Silver Ace?
Yeah, they're wrecking the place.
No.
In the world before Shintaro and the samurai, kids' TV was okay, but it was pretty predictable. And while the kids were happy to watch, they were also up for something new.
What's the idea? I'm breaking this up before somebody really gets hurt.
No gal's telling me what to do.
This gal is.
The sort of things we had in children's television with Mickey Mouse Club, and we had a lot of cowboys and Indians, that sort of thing. I actually preferred the Indians. I thought they were much more interesting than the cowboys.
White man, steals from Navajo. Many, many times.
Do you know what? I've discovered that one of the Cabbage Quiz contestants has never drunk Ovaltine before.
Not all the kids' shows came from overseas, but even the local shows were in a rut.
Although I have been there for a long time, I wasn't actually working for Channel 9 in the early 60s. I started in the late 60s. However, as I say, we did have a relationship. We used to be allowed to go up there to go to Desmond Tester and the Channel 9 pens being recorded in the studios at our Tarman Road, Willoughby.
Thank you, Stanley Stafford, my boy. Oh, by the way, girls and boys.
But it was that period of time where Australia was coming out of the 1950s, where everything was very almost anal. Everything was ordered, everybody knew what they were supposed to do, even down to the family pets, I think, knew what they were supposed to do.
But the times, they were a-changin'. Whether the old folks liked it or not, something was in the air.
The Beatles had happened the year before in Australia, and so people that were born sort of late 40s, early 50s were starting to find a little bit of voice, and there was huge change. Everything was starting to be questioned.
And it was just before it really started changing and going into the 60s, the late 60s, 70s, where you suddenly had all that culture brought out of, you know, the Vietnam War that came into Australia, the revolution in film and television, and just culture that happened after that. But it was that little grey area in between real 1950s Australia and what it became afterwards.
Put them on board. No, you don't. I'll kill you now, Shintaro.
The samurai was always going to look exotic, compared to the comfortable world of Aussie suburbia.
Did you see that, Kansai? What?
But it wasn't just the swordplay and the ninja stars that made everyone sit up and take notice.
The bath scene.
He sent his ninja against us.
The famous bath scene where we see Shintaro naked in the big Japanese bath. Back then, especially as children, you didn't see nakedness on television. It was a bit of a surprise to suddenly have a scene with Shintaro in this bath.
I was contacting various landowners about
When things got really tough, Shintaro bathed. That guy bathed through the 17th century. I tell you, whenever there was any pressure on Shintaro to go and have a bath and think about it.
As far as I can tell, was Shusaku, who was after all a 10-year-old kid, standing up naked, butt naked, fortunately the back view, and you just didn't see nudity in those days. And we were like, did you see the bath Aussie, yes. That was the big thing. Like, what? Well, some of us sort of said, well, it was Pete wasn't one of the adults, really.
Then I'll give you anything you want, if you can catch me.
The kids were sort of shocked, but at the same time, you know, really excited that a sort of adult idea of a grown man having a bath was shown on kids' TV. And, you know, we just felt the boundaries just being pushed a little bit by this program, whereas in Japan, I'm sure it didn't even raise an eyebrow, but for us, it was quite novel.
Shintaro? Tomei isn't drowned, is he?
The samurai also pushed the boundaries on issues like violence. But then, as the kids saw it, Japanese violence was different.
It was kind of confronting because it wasn't a comedy. So when you're watching Tom and Jerry or any kind of cartoon where there's violence, or the Three Stooges, or even Jerry Lewis, even Laurel and Hardy, there's a lot of violence in Laurel and Hardy, but it's all comedy.
We recognised that it was cartoon violence, and my parents recognised that it was cartoon violence. We knew you couldn't kill people like that. We knew people didn't die that way.
Shintaro, I really hate to kill a man with your intelligence.
The samurais, the lone gunman or swordsman, wandering the countryside, fighting off bad guys, saving the girl or saving the good people. You know, that Clint Eastwood analogy is very close.
Shintaro could be surrounded by upwards of 20 or 30 Koga ninjas. They would only ever attack from the front, one at a time. I used to say, well, just bloody get in there. If they all went in, you know, all you need to say was, now, go. I mean, he could have been mincemeat within seconds, but no. They had to approach him one at a time.
There were so many bodies and all this yelling and screaming going on. It was pretty graphic. And my grandfather used to say you'd have to clean out the back of the TV set before we can watch the next episode.
I've lost this fight, Shintaro.
The amazing thing about the samurai obsession was the villains were as popular as the Shining Knight, Shintaro.
And it was the only show I've ever seen where the kids wanted to be the ninjas, not Shintaro. They wanted to jump around, wear black pajamas, and get killed.
The Puma Ninja Spider Attack! Get him!
The Spider Ninja were probably the guys that really made me sit up and go, wow, that's pretty weird. They hung up in trees on rope spider webs, waiting to drop down on unsuspecting samurai.
I remember the puppet ninjas. That was very interesting. They were disguised as a band of travelling puppeteers. And Shintaro couldn't see through that, the idiot.
The other thing about those ninjas was, what you saw wasn't necessarily what you got.
One of the great disguises that the ninjas would use would be as an old man carrying sticks. So you'd have this hunched old bloke with this rack full of sticks on his back, and Shintaro would go, "Oh, now, where are you going now? Who are you?" And he would just say, "I'm just an old man carrying sticks." And as soon as he got sticks out, he'd try and cut Shintaro's head off. He was a bad bastard.
What is it, old man?
I was stupid. I dropped my flint and stone somewhere, and I very much would like to smoke my pipe right now, if I could.
I didn't know who the bad guys were.
Oh, yes.
You could have told me that Shintaro was the bad guy and I would have believed it. I didn't quite know what was going on.
Shintaro, do you think that old man is a Nagishi ninja?
No. Even a very well-trained ninja would show evil intentions on his face. No, I don't think that he was a ninja in disguise. But if that old man was a ninja...
If he was?
Then he would be one of their most skillful ones.
Originally made only for Japanese television, The Samurai was naturally filmed in Japanese. But the producers were thinking big. They dreamed of reaching out to the lucrative English-speaking market. Japanese animation like Astro Boy had recently made a killing in the US, and maybe The Samurai could do the same thing, which meant the series had to be dubbed into English.
Here is
the real murder weapon that I hold in my hand. And there's 10 pieces of gold.
Not only was it dubbed, it was badly dubbed. They made no attempt to try to actually match up what they were saying with the way people's mouths moved, and they would still continue talking after the people themselves had their mouths closed. So it was like watching a ventriloquist act along with everything else. So that intrigued us.
Why those? You know, there's mates of mine who I will ring and go, why those? And they'll know exactly what I'm talking about.
Why you?
Like that, because there's a lot of that sort of laughter. And I know what you're thinking, and I've got you.
Come now, we go at once now. The road to Edo is from danger now.
I just escaped from the Cook Ninja. I'm a carpenter. My name is Sozo. Oh, please don't punish me. Don't kill me.
Everything ended with a now, and then would speed up at the end of a sentence. From danger now. Always like that.
Old man, I did all this.
You what?
As it went on in years, the dub became more kitsch and became more of, it made the show more humorous. It gave it another humorous element that people would watch it for.
Now, drink a little of this.
If you've ever watched any that are subtitled and not dubbed, oh, they're rubbish. I find it very difficult to watch them and enjoy them. I find the dubbing really seems to add to it for some bizarre reason, which I don't really understand. I love it. I can't get enough of the dubbing.
Oh. Old man, what are you doing?
Shintaro Wakikusa, I am here to kill you.
I'm embarrassed to say that I don't know that I noticed as a kid.
That voice! Why, you're the Nagishi ninja who attacked the boat.
I wasn't trying to read his lips.
You are right. I am the Death Ninja who has come for you. I have come here to bring you death. Until I succeed, I will never leave you alone.
There was one scene with the Death Ninja where he was impervious to being cut. And Shintaro was slicing and dicing and he was going, ah! And Shintaro couldn't kill him with the blade of the sword. And Tombe was drugged at the time. He'd been given some poison and he could barely speak, but Tombe's lying on the ground and he's going, Shintaro! Shintaro!
Shintaro, don't cut him. Use the blunt side of your sword.
And Shintaro goes, oh, and uses the blunt end of the sword to beat him to death. That was my first introduction to lateral thinking. That was a turning point.
Shintaro was unbeatable. The Japanese had become an essential part of Aussie childhood, something that would cause a national controversy.
Shintaro, I lost this fight.
Shisaku, be careful.
Yes.
Hey, you two ninjas.
The effects of the samurai show spread quickly across Australia.
Give me those things.
Schoolyards became oriental battlegrounds as the young samurais and ninjas laid into each other with a lethal array of homemade weaponry.
These things will take your eye out, okay?
The school system didn't know what had hit it.
Go on, get to class. Off to class.
Sydney headmaster Rex Morgan was the first to take a stand.
Because of the way they were all behaving with it in the playground and you know, running around hurting each other, in the excitement of the cult, I banned it and I said, well, we're not going to have any of this.
They suddenly made out as if we'd all gone Shintaro mad and turned into little ninjas, ignoring the fact that we'd been playing cowboys and itchy bums for the last 30 years and slaughtering one another left, right and centre with, the garden rake. That, however, didn't impact on people because that was okay. That was cowboys and Indians.
Do you understand me?
Yes.
Even bowing on the playground was going on at Coogee Prep.
Oh, forgive me, sir.
It's all right.
At the time that the samurai came out, you have to remember that the war had only been over less than 20 years. So, of course, there were plenty of adults in the older generations who still harboured a lot of distrust and dislike for the Japanese.
My father was in Changi, prisoner of war camp. He was never the same as a man going through what all the occupants of that particular facility went through. He died when I was, I think, about 9 years old. And it's interesting when I look back at that and how I felt, and in the context of later when I watched Shintaro and the samurai, I had no concept of prejudice to the Japanese people.
I'm shocked that this sort of glorifying is permitted in Australia.
For a lot of people, it was just too much. The shock jocks and headline writers of the time had a field day.
I question the mental health of a nation which permits its schoolchildren to be exposed to the current cult of Japanese sadism and cruelty in the guise of a TV hero. Now, of course, what I meant by that was that I had these children totally involved, as it seemed, in this whole thing. It was like a great club.
And there was a lot of response to that. At first, a lot of people agreed. It's a normal knee-jerk reaction. If you don't like something, but you don't know quite why, everybody loves the first person who comes along with a very good, argued reason. And I think Schoolmaster did argue that it was possibly promoting violence. A lot of the letters just didn't like the Japs, and so they were only too happy to find another reason to kick a race for any reason whatsoever.
But the Aussie public had a few surprises up its sleeve. 1965 was still a very white Australia, but Shintaro and his ninjas had more friends than many thought.
However, then there was an interesting groundswell, and a lot of letters from people who had obviously been watching it with the children wrote explaining the context of the show, the whole idea of the Japanese mythology, of the noble art of the samurai, of the task that they took on, of the sacrifice in ways akin to the Christian Crusaders. And a lot of spirited argument went back and forth.
Mr. Morgan should return to school and learn a little more about his facts before he starts his I Hate Japs campaign on our... Well, you know, that's absurd, absolutely absurd, because that was about the last thing that I was saying. All I was doing was commenting on the fact that there were some aspects of this program which were certainly affecting children, because it was reflecting the sort of sadistic aspects of part of the Japanese culture, which we can't deny because we know the facts of what was happening in the war. And I think that was the thing that I was really talking about.
Do as you please.
But it was all lost on the kids. They reckoned they knew what Shintaro was about.
The message of the show was actually quite simple. There were the good guys and the bad guys. There was a little bit of fuzziness involved there because, as I recall, one of the things that we liked about Shintaro was that, or I liked about him, was that he was an outsider.
He would always rescue the innocent and protect the weak. These are all positive messages.
Okay.
He wasn't a vigilante. He was, in fact, supposedly a secret agent. And, in fact, of course, when you look at him that way, that ties into the secret agent genre that was also starting to become popular in the mid-60s.
But what about all that senseless Japanese violence?
Well, firstly, I object to the term senseless violence. I find all of it completely senseful. He did have a strong moral code. He was out for vengeance and he went about his way, and he never started a fight. He's like an AFL footballer in that regard. He never started one.
Shintaro, now you will die.
There was exactly the same code of honour with the Shintaro, that he was not one who would just reach for his sword at the first sign of trouble. It was always to save the day at the end of trying other alternative means.
I didn't want to fight in the hotel.
As a child, it never seemed as violent as shooting somebody like a cowboy did, or an Indian with an arrow, which is what we'd see. It didn't seem as violent as that to me.
As a kid, you don't relate to it literally thinking, oh, gee, all those people have been killed. as much as when you're playing out in the bush or in the backyard. You're not thinking, oh, gee, I've got to shoot my best friend Stevie now, and he's actually going to be dead, because it's play, and I don't